Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Do you ever get that feeling like the more you learn about genetics, the more you realize how much is still out there?
It's like we're only scratching the surface.
Exactly. And today, we're going deep into a zone that's usually pretty hidden. We're talking about the world of non-coding DNA.
Ah, the great unknown.
Right. You know that 98% of our genome that scientists used to call junk? They thought it didn't do much.
Yeah, turns out they were a tad off the mark.
Just a bit. This stuff is way more important than anyone ever imagined. We've got a stack of research, hot off the presses, from Deng and their team, and let me tell you, it is blowing my mind.
What's captivating here is how this research takes something we thought we knew, non-coding DNA, and flips the script. It's like we were looking at this giant, intricate puzzle, but we could only see a tiny fraction of the pieces.
We were missing the big picture.
Exactly. But now we're starting to see it.
Okay, so break it down for us. What exactly is in this research, and why is it such a big deal?
So this research centers around a new method called brain magnet.
Brain magnets.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know. But what it does is incredibly sophisticated. It helps us pinpoint the specific areas within this non-coding DNA that actually matter, especially when it comes to how our brains develop.
So it's like having a searchlight in this vast, uncharted territory of our DNA,
Exactly.
highlighting the areas that are actually calling the shots.
That's a great way to put it. And what they found is that not all non-coding DNA is created equal. They used a technique called ChIP-Star-Seq. Right. And don't worry, you don't need to remember that. It basically lets them zero in on the parts of non-coding DNA that are super active in brain cells. These regions are called NCREs, which stands for non-coding regulatory elements.
Okay, NCREs, got it. And what are they doing exactly?
Imagine them as the control switches for our genes, telling them when to turn on and off,
And they're mainly doing this in the brain.
especially in the brain.
Active NCREs. Got it. So they're like the conductors of the genetic orchestra, making sure everything runs smoothly up top. But what happens when these conductors get things wrong?
Well, the researchers discovered something really interesting. These active NCREs, the ones really doing the heavy lifting, they tend to be incredibly similar across different species. Think about that, from humans to mice. These control switches haven't changed much at all over millions of years of evolution. And they also found that healthy people tend to have very few variations in these specific NCREs. That tells us that these regions are incredibly important and that messing with them could lead to serious problems.
It's like realizing that those seemingly insignificant buttons in an airplane cockpit are actually crucial for keeping the whole thing in the air.
Exactly.
So how did they figure out that these NCREs were so important?
That's where brain magnet comes in. They developed this incredibly sophisticated computer model. Think of it like a superpowered detective for our DNA.
I like it.
It can analyze the sequence of these NCREs and predict how active they are. And get this, they tested it out in the lab and found that brain magnet's predictions were spot on.
Wow, so it's not just some theoretical model, it actually
Yeah.
works. But how does this actually help us understand diseases? That's what we really want to know.
Right, absolutely. They took brain magnet and applied it to real-world genetic data from huge studies like the 100,000 Genomes Project.
Ambitious.
It allowed them to uncover rare variations in NCREs that might be contributing to neurological and neurodevelopmental disorders. In one instance, they found a family with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, and guess what? It looks like a mutation in an NCRE regulating the RAB7A gene might be the culprit.
So wait, they traced this disease back to a tiny glitch in one of these genetic control switches. It's mind-blowing how much power these non-coding regions have.
It really is remarkable, isn't it? It completely changes how we think about the genome.
It's like finding a typo in the instruction manual for building, like, healthy nerves, and that one tiny error just has huge consequences down the line. This is incredible stuff.
It really highlights how even small changes in these regulatory elements can have this like ripple effect on our health.
Okay, so they used brain magnet to track down this one disease.
Yeah.
Did they find any other examples like this?
They did. They found this other fascinating mutation near the ACTB gene. Now, this gene is involved in Barretzer-Winter syndrome.
That's a complex neurodevelopmental disorder, right?
Exactly. And this particular mutation, what it did was it actually dialed down the activity of the NCRE. Like, it's almost like someone messed with the control panel for this crucial gene.
So in this case, it's like the control switch is stuck on low, and that's causing problems.
Yeah.
It's incredible how even subtle changes in these non-coding areas can have such a big impact.
Exactly. And what's even more amazing is they use this same approach to potentially rule out a disease-causing mutation in a patient who doctors thought had Mowat-Wilson syndrome.
Wait, so they use this technology to potentially rule out a misdiagnosis? That's incredible. It seems
Both.
like this could be a game changer for how we diagnose genetic conditions in the future.
Absolutely. This research could lead to more accurate diagnoses and potentially help avoid unnecessary anxiety for patients and their families. It's about moving away from guesswork and towards precision in genetic medicine.
Okay, so we've talked about the research, we've seen some specific examples, but let's bring this home for our listeners. What does this all mean for the average person? Why should we care about these tiny bits of non-coding DNA?
That's a great question. This research isn't just about scientific curiosity, it has very real implications for our health and well-being. Think of it this way. Imagine a future where your doctor could analyze your non-coding DNA to create a personalized health plan just for you. They could predict your risk for certain diseases, tailor treatments specifically to your genetic makeup. That's the power of this research.
So we're talking about truly personalized medicine, treatments designed just for you based on your unique genetic code.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper than that. This research also holds incredible promise for understanding the genetic basis of complex diseases, the ones that have stumped scientists for years.
You're talking about things like heart disease or diabetes, right?
Mhm.
We know they have a strong genetic component, but scientists haven't been able to fully explain why some people inherit them and others don't.
Precisely. It's like we've been missing a huge piece of the puzzle. But now, this research suggests that non-coding DNA plays a vital role in this missing heritability.
So are you saying that the answers we've been searching for, the keys to understanding and treating these complex diseases, might actually lie within this non-coding DNA?
That's the exciting prospect. By deciphering the language of the non-coding genome, we can potentially discover new drug targets and develop more effective treatments for a wide range of diseases. It's like opening up a whole new frontier in medicine.
This is seriously mind-blowing stuff. We've gone from thinking of non-coding DNA as junk to realizing it's anything but. It's essential for our health, it's potentially being shaped by our environment, and it connects us to both our ancestors and our descendants.
It really makes you appreciate the sheer complexity and wonder of the human genome. We've learned so much, but there's still so much more to discover.
It's like we've been looking at a map of the world our whole lives, but it only showed us the continents. And now suddenly we're discovering all these incredible islands and these hidden archipelagos that we never even knew existed.
That's a fantastic analogy. And it really makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other mysteries are hiding within this vast, unexplored territory of our DNA?
Well, on that note, I have to ask, if our non-coding DNA is so important for our health, could things in our environment actually affect it? Like, could things like stress or pollution or what we eat, could that mess with these genetic control panels?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and it's something that scientists are just starting to kind of unravel. There's this whole field of research called epigenetics.
Epigenetics, right?
Yeah, and that's basically looking at how things in our environment can actually change how our genes work, but without actually changing the underlying DNA sequence itself. So it's not like a mutation.
Okay.
It's more like, think of it like flipping a switch to turn gene on or off, but you're not changing the actual wiring.
So our environment could be affecting our genes in ways that we never even imagined. That's kind of wild.
It is. And what's even more mind-blowing is that some of these epigenetic changes can be passed down from one generation to the next.
Wait, are you serious? Are you telling me that something that happens to me, like if I'm exposed to pollution or I have a really stressful job or something, that could potentially impact the health of my kids or even my grandkids? That's kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal. It really highlights the profound responsibility we have, not just for our own health, but for the health of future generations as well.
It's like realizing that we're not just individuals.
Right.
We're part of this incredible web of life that extends far beyond just ourselves, backward and forward in time.
Exactly. And the more we understand about the non-coding genome, the more we understand about this interconnectedness, this sort of lasting impact that we have.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from thinking of non-coding DNA as junk to realizing it's anything but. It's essential for our health, it's potentially being shaped by our environment, and it connects us to both our ancestors and our descendants.
It really makes you appreciate the sheer complexity and wonder of the human genome, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
We've learned so much, but there's still so much more to discover.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of non-coding DNA. We hope you've enjoyed the journey and maybe even learned a thing or two along the way.
It's been a pleasure exploring these groundbreaking discoveries with you.
And remember, the quest for knowledge never ends. So keep asking questions, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.